This is a friend of mine. His name is Connor's Thoughts. He was a big PGR guy who has been pivoting over to Wuthering Waves. And I think that he's honestly very underrated, very, very cool content creator, very balanced, very normal person. This is called This Argument is Dumb. And I believe this is a response to a take I've had about meta. Subscribe.
All right, here's the deal. We got another war brewing up here in the content creation space surrounding Wuthering Waves. The game still hasn't even launched yet. People are already coming at each other for the different things. Gosh darn it, guys.
I don't think we should be having wars. The game's not even out yet. That's true. I think anybody trying to start beef and conflict is a little bit interesting. But yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, let's do war. I like that. Not on the internet though. Let's have real life fist fights. I think it'll be great.
We're gonna step in here and clean up everybody's mess real quick.
Thank you,
Jeez.
Father.
It's like some of you don't even understand how to communicate with each other sometimes, you know?
No, we don't need to communicate. This is not a job revolving around communications. I think that we should all just talk at each other and not listen at all. Dude, Connor gives such dad energy. He's like, all right, kids, it's time to come clean up your mess. What did y'all get into? Because we'll be honest, most of us in Gacha are kind of little monkeys. Crawling around, throwing shit at each other, going... And so I like the energy of somebody coming up. All right, what mess did y'all get into now? Let's figure it out.
Okay, let's just get into it, okay? Here's the deal. There's been a lot of conversation breaking out about the idea of meta in Wuthering Waves and guides in Wuthering Waves and casual players in Wuthering Waves, and there being a bit of a conflict between some of the groups. And I can definitely understand where a lot of people are coming from, but I feel like there's a lot of this happening right now in the conversation, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people, I feel like, are arguing not the same point. Right? Here's what's happening. There's a recent movement of players talking about how they don't really care about the meta, that they don't really care about the guides that are being released, because they want to be able to just explore the game and play the game at their own pace and decide what kind of builds they want to come up with. They love the opportunity to just explore the game at their own pace, play the characters that they want to play in the way that they want to play them. And I think
this is very valid. Where I'm coming from this is because Honkai Star Rail is a really numbers-focused, meta-focused game because of the turn-based combat and a lot of other things. I think that a lot of people have sort of misunderstood where I'm coming from about the meta stuff. The thing is that sometimes I put important points at the end of videos and then people don't watch to the end because they get to the middle part and they go, well, I don't like what she's saying and I don't care. And then they comment and they get really upset and they just decide what I said. I think that it is fair to want to play games the way that you want to play them if you're sweaty, or if you want to play in a casual way, or if you want to be in the middle. But I actually did do a poll about who is hardcore, casual, in between. Most people are somewhere in between being really, really hardcore players or being really, really casual. Most people are in an in-between place where they want to complete content, but they don't really care to super high min-max to zero cycle, to know every single detail about every single character in the game. I guess the problem that I've had in my experience, which I will be honest is probably affected as a streamer, but I think it permeates the rest of the community as well. I think it's also on Reddit and Discords and all of those things. But my experience has been that there's not a lot of acceptance for people who don't really care to min-max and have perfected builds and who just want to complete content. This in-between part is kind of the frustrating area to be in a lot of ways. Most people want to complete all the content just simply because they want all of the rewards. But most people also don't really care to get characters purely for their min-max potential. They don't care to have perfected stats. They don't care to have perfected teams. Most people want to kind of get in, do the bare minimum, and get out so they can get all of their jades. But there's a lot of nuance to this. And honestly, the reality is that the reason that Connor is seeing that people are arguing different points is because people don't allow for a lot of nuance. They hear the argument that they want to hear, and then they argue that. And I will say I do that as well. But the reason that people are not really seeing eye to eye on what they're talking about is because person A says one thing, person B says another thing. They respond to that other thing. And then it goes in this vicious cycle where they never really understand each other, or like the sides never understand each other. Because it requires nuance. And when you have an agenda and you have a point that you want to make, it doesn't really lead to a lot of good conversations.
Absolutely zero things wrong with that position.
Yeah.
Games are about fun. Play the freaking game how you want to play the game. So I think that's
100%.
totally fine. However, then a lot of the guide makers and people who enjoy finding the meta who are coming out and saying, stop complaining about meta. Stop complaining about this. Like, you don't have to play it. Play whatever you want. Why do you got to drag us into it? And that's the problem. Because it's not really the guide makers or the casual players who are at fault here. It's the people in the middle who just say really dumb things and get really annoying sometimes.
100%.
We need to understand that guides are helpful because of one very key reason that I don't see a lot of people talking about.
Okay.
People are dumb. A perfect...
What do you mean? My chat is not dumb. My chat is full of alpha omega geniuses with 170 IQ. And I always hear the most intelligent of conversations and reactions and responses to the things that I say. Chat is so very smart. I think one of the points that is sometimes missed specifically in the Honkai Star Rail community additionally is that guides are supposed to be for in between or less experienced players. Guides realistically are not supposed to be for high tier players for the most part, because if you need a guide to know how to play the game when you're already doing zero cycle stuff, there's probably an issue. You should understand the game well enough as a hardcore player that you don't need shit tons of guides. And I think that's a weird thing that is like said in the Honkai Star Rail community. Well, you're only gonna need a guide if you're trying to be hardcore. No, you're probably gonna need a guide if you're stuck on content. Most normal people, in between people, are going to look up guides when they're stuck on content that they are not hardcore enough to just be able to bust through. And I get the feedback a lot that guides are for hardcore players and a casual or in-between player is never going to look up a guide. And I don't think that's true at all. I think they're probably the ones who need guides the most.
Example of this is if we just go back to MTashed. Back when Genshin Impact started, he was coming out with tutorial videos and guide videos on how to increase your character's power, and they were very, very basic videos, how-to videos of just literally leveling artifacts. He made a whole like 8-minute video on leveling artifacts. And don't get me wrong, he got a lot of flack for it at the time. A lot of people are aware of that thing. But that video did amazing. He got tons of views on that video. And you know what? He helped a ton of people too. Because a lot of people don't realize that just simply leveling your artifacts is going to have that much of an effect, or people unsure of what artifacts that they want to level or what they should be leveling. So having those kind of basic guides and tutorials and things are helpful for people because people are dumb, obviously.
And I also think MTash is a really, really good example because he made those videos and people absolutely shit on him. But the thing was, and the reason that MTash was so smart for those guides and the reason those guides did so well is because he did not assume a base level of knowledge. He assumed that people were stupid and had no knowledge and had no experience and had never played a gacha game before, because that was the reality with Genshin Impact, was so many people had never played a gacha game before. If you play gachas, you kind of do know how to build around your account. Most gacha games have sort of a similar thing where you understand resource management, you understand the things that are important, you understand more or less which things boost your damage because you already have a base understanding of gacha games, and a lot of those systems are the same. MTash was very smart because he assumed that people didn't know that, and he got a lot of shit because people were saying, oh, well, you didn't need to make that guide. Everybody already knows that. But they didn't, and that's why those guides were so smart, and content creators should be able to make things as widely appealing and usable as possible. And when they do, you can see in MTash case, those guides blew the fuck up because they were useful to a lot of players, and they did also help some players that were more hardcore or more familiar with gacha, because he still had helpful tips for them too. Being widely appealing should be the goal of guide makers. You should not assume knowledge as much as possible, especially when a game is coming out, in my opinion.
Not you. If you're my viewer, of course you're not dumb. You're clearly smart for being here, so I appreciate you being here. However, if you had not had an opportunity to like and subscribe, make sure to do that right now. But we're gonna continue on ranting. chanting here.
My viewers are also very, very smart and very handsome boys. They're looking very handsome today, very intelligent. I can tell you've taken your vitamins and you've eaten your Wheaties. You're doing a great job, chat room.
Gacha games are catered towards a casual audience by and large, meaning like you don't need to necessarily sink a ton of time into it every single day, so you can slowly make progress on your account, improve your characters, and keep moving. Not everyone has the time to go through and figure out the perfect builds or what artifacts that they should be using, and just want a guide to help them do that. They just want somebody to say, hey, yeah, put the ice artifacts on the ice character. Some people literally just want to hear that to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And
well, sometimes the ice artifacts aren't the best artifacts for the character. Sometimes the best artifact for the character is the quantum artifacts for some goddamn reason, and you wouldn't know that unless you looked at the guide. But you know who would probably know that is freaking hardcore players, which is why you should make guides that are for everyone.
Don't blame those people at all. If you're a working adult or somebody who's busy in college and you're trying to get through finals or something, and you literally just want to look up a quick guide so you can keep continuing to play how you want to play and not have to overthink those elements of it, I think that's totally cool. And I think there's a service and a people who will benefit from those kinds of videos.
100%.
Where it becomes a problem, where the line is now overstepped into not a good thing, is when the viewers of such videos, and or in some cases the content creators who make those videos, who start talking about meta, the most efficient teams come into play, is when you start telling somebody that they are wrong for playing the game and not playing in the meta. This is something that became a big deal in the Honkai Star Rail community recently. A lot of people have been bringing up some conflict there.
I don't actually think it is a lot of people. I think that has been a fight that I have unfortunately been taking on more or less by myself. And it has not been to very much excitement or praise by anyone. Most people disagree with me. I don't care. I agree with me. If you have other creators that are talking about that in Honkai Star Rail, please send them my way so that we can be best friends. But I don't know that this is like a consistent thing that is being brought up by basically anybody else, because most people don't really care. Most people are day one players for Honkai Star Rail and don't give a shit about anything other than what their demographic is, and that's fine. I guess I understand that. I see it a lot, this kind of attitude that if you don't play meta and you don't min-max, then you don't deserve to feel like frustrated about completing content, or like you shouldn't expect to clear content. And meta is supposed to be like most optimal. In every game, there are other ways to play than the meta. That is true in single and multiplayer games. And to an extent, I do care about meta. I do care more about having fun and like getting characters that I care about. And so I do agree with this. I think this is an important distinction to make. It is mostly people who have elitism regarding meta that is the problem, because there are different ways to play games. People don't only play League of Legends with meta characters. They work around it and they figure out how to play with the characters that they like. The problem in Honkai Star Rail is people act like, well, if you don't want to play meta characters, then don't expect to ever complete anything. Nobody's going to be able to help you, because it's like, well, you don't have that character? Die. Don't do it then. And that's like not across the board, but it's very, very common. It's a very common attitude, and that is a problem. I understand that Wuthering Waves is going to have a really hardcore audience. I think that's cool. I actually like difficult games. My concern lies with people like day one being so elitist about like, well, I followed this guide on how to start my account day one and you're not doing that, so you're a moron. And like that attitude sucks ass, because you can do meta and you can min-max and you can enjoy yourself, and that can be the way you enjoy your game. You can do casual play and you can not care at all about completing content, and you can have fun with the game that way, and that's okay. And you can be in the middle and have fun and also want to complete content, and that's an okay way for you to play.
And we can see it's already coming into Wuthering Waves, because it's that's how gacha players are. So at least a small portion of them, enough that it makes a lot of people really annoyed. But it's the people who do that, who leave the comments, who, when somebody's asking for a guide or a tip or how to build a character, that immediately everybody just goes straight to meta, make or break, do meta, or don't even play the game. Or at least that's the way that they communicate. They become real jerks about it. And when you're just trying to explore a game, have fun, maybe find some information, it can be really disheartening when you're when people are telling you to basically uninstall the game because you missed a character's banner that was up 6 months ago. There's nothing you can do about that. I guess we'll
that's why the Pella thing was a really big beam in my community, because I struggle with content, and like not even like hardcore content, just like regular ass content. People be like, well, why don't you use Pella? Because I don't have Pella. Okay, well, should have pulled her then. It's like, shut the fuck up! I just want to play the game. I don't have her. What do you want from me? Now I have Pella, and that's very poggers. And so now, obviously, all the content in the game is very easy to me. This is a joke. But yeah, it's a very frustrating mindset where it's like, well, if you don't have this character, then you're just boned. Because that doesn't really show that you actually know a lot about the game. And there's a reality that you can understand concepts on a surface level. If you do not understand concepts or do not understand the game enough to be able to problem solve around the characters that an account actually has to make it work, you don't actually know that much about the game. You just know a lot about meta. But people want to be elitist about that regardless.
Go back in time and start playing when the game launched, I guess.
Yeah.
Zero help. And it's just disappointing, disheartening, and it makes you really demotivated and not have fun with playing the game.
Agreed.
That's the part. That's where the argument's truly happening.
Yes.
It's not a problem with guides existing or some people even discovering meta, some of the most efficient builds, but it's when the people who then worship the meta as the only way to play the game.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's the part that everyone just gets super annoyed by. So
thank you for putting that into words so nicely and respectfully, because I think I've had a bad time actually explaining this concept. It is not a problem of guide makers or that the meta exists. Guide makers and meta exist in any game, every game. It is specifically this elitism crap. And if you don't play meta exactly the way that these guide makers say you play meta, then you don't deserve to like complete content and you should just uninstall. That is what sucks. I think I've probably done a poor job of explaining that, or it tends to be at the end of the video and then people just don't listen to it. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But the elitism is a problem. It's going to be in every game. I'm still going to call it out. It being something that exists in multiple games does not mean that I don't get to say that it's a problem. The more of an elitist people are about games, and the more people accept that elitism as being normal and good and like an okay way to be in the community, the more you are going to force more niche around your game than you need to, because people will come into the game and see that elitist behavior and be like, okay, I don't really want to like play this anymore. And it's a good thing to encourage people also to play the game and want to be a part of a more welcoming community. Is this something can be solved? I don't think so, because people don't want to recognize it as a problem. But like, it does make it so that the community itself is sort of unwelcoming. So hypothetically, people might go into the community and play the game and be excited and then sort of get that like elitist mentality and be turned off by that. And so maybe they keep playing the game, but they're not going to participate in the community. And the community is important. Having a good mindset and having a good vibe in your community is incredibly important, especially in these niche games. But we further the niche of Honkai Star Rail, which is already like a turn-based gotcha game, when we're also heavy on elitism in terms of like talking to people and giving advice and with the meta stuff.
I can totally understand, especially a content creator who you can sometimes get hundreds of viewers backseating you when you're trying to play a game when someone's like, why are you using them? They're not the best character. Most of us don't give a crap. Like 100%, I will be playing Yin Ling probably often like a main DPS, even though maybe her most efficient way to play her is actually as like a sub DPS slash off-field DPS character, because the way that her kit and skills are designed. But I don't
Makes sense.
I like the character Yin Ling, so I plan on playing Yin Ling on field because I think she looks cool and I like her abilities.
She is very cool. And I do like her abilities. And again, I do think that there should be space for people to be regarded as being good at the game or being educated about the game, even if they don't play the meta way. This is a single player game. And in Honkai Star Rail, it is worse because so much of it revolves around the numbers. I understand that. Spreadsheeting is the easiest way to figure out optimal stuff. And it is the shortest distance between trying to finish endgame content and finishing that endgame content, and it's in a turn-based game. If you spreadsheet hard enough in Honkai Star Rail and you get the stats that you need, you will always be able to finish all of the content. That is not going to hopefully be quite so relevant in this game. It will eventually be that way more and more so as people figure things out and find the right and correct way, the optimal way. But like, we need to simmer down on the spreadsheeting just a little bit. We can enjoy it, but assuming that is the only way to play a game, especially like Wuthering Waves, is very, very foolish.
So the final point that I'm trying to make here is, well, there is a service for guide makers, and I think there are those people who don't have the time to sink into it, that they just want to see the guides, so someone can tell them to put the ice artifacts on the ice set so they can feel good about it. Let them make the content. That's totally fine. Continue to make that content. You're going to help people.
100%.
But you in the community that refuse to let other players have fun because somebody doesn't want to play the meta, just stop. Just stop. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to hear it. Nobody likes to look in the comments or in the replies of somebody trying to just harp on their fun because they want to play a character that they want to play, but they're not the meta DPS, the fire character, or whatever. It's enough. I think we've all basically had enough at this point.
I agree.
Let me know in the comments down below if you've had enough of this. I know a lot of us have, but at the end of the day, all of us are really excited for Wuthering Waves. And a lot of us are going to be playing Wuthering Waves differently. Whether it's meta chasers or the casuals who just want to play the characters that they want to play,
or the people in between.
Maybe you're somewhere in between.
Oh, okay. Well, he said it. In between, yes.
Maybe you do look up a guide to play the character you want efficiently, even if they're not the meta character.
Yes.
Who cares? It's a freaking game, guys. A game that we're all excited for, and it's coming out on May 22nd, so make sure to come back here, find more Wuthering Waves content. If you enjoyed the content today, like I said, make sure to drop a subscribe. I will be streaming on the launch of Wuthering Waves as well if you want to come and check it out there. Stream every Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, safe for work.
Okay, meta glazers unite, very poggers. I guess the way to wrap this up, I want to say, is like, we can play games however we want. Remember that Wuwa is not Honkai Star Rail. If you are a major Honkai Star Rail enjoyer, the spreadsheeting works really well in Honkai Star Rail because there is no skill-based active playing. Spreadsheeting will only have a limited effect in terms of Wuwa. I don't know that we're going to be able, especially early on, to spreadsheet hard enough to get over your skill issue, and that is okay. Let people play games how they want on both sides. Just don't be a weird elitist pig and make it seem like you're really, really cool and better than other people. Don't be condescending to people because you understand the meta, because that doesn't mean that you actually understand the game overall better. And if you have to rely on meta for every single thing that you do, the meta that is fed to you by guide makers, then the reality is that you don't actually really get the game that well, and you're never going to be able to problem solve, and you probably shouldn't be giving advice. But that's kind of all I want to say. Like, comment, subscribe, go support Connor, fellow Wuwa Glazer, big fan, very knowledgeable, been in Kuro Games for a long time, very cool guy. See you later. Have a good night. Say goodbye to YouTube. Bye!